Hey folks, George here again from the Spacemen with Guns podcast, doing our week number 2 build log. First things first, did not get Gilliman done, so here you go. He's still essentially where he was before. I actually worked on him today for a couple of minutes, just got some highlights and stuff done, but majority of the week was spent working on the ass ram. As you can see, here's the center section. Paint is almost entirely off, and it's also in pieces. I did manage to get this apart by sticking it in the freezer for a little while. So now, you can see here's one of the booms. Still some paint on there that I do need to get off, and you can see some big seams there. Right through here, down along here. They're going to need to get corrected. Now, by actually taking this thing apart, I've created a lot more work for myself. But I'm going to be able to do this, like I said in the last video, the way that I want to do it. I'm going to be able to build this thing from the beginning how I want to do it. So it means I get to over-engineer it. I get to put a lot of pins where I don't necessarily need them, but it's going to make me feel a lot better. I get to paint it so that I have it my way, which I was going to get to do anyway, to be honest, guys. But it gave me a lot more insight into whoever built this originally, what they did wrong, which was a lot, and get to correct all that now. So like I said, I created a lot more work for myself. And from what I've heard, read, watched, the Caestus itself has a few issues that are going to need to be corrected, dealt with. But something that I found when I was going through this and was what the original builder used to fill all their gaps and everything. Now you guys remember from the last video I showed you that big seam that went along that back plate with the engine exhausts. Turns out they actually used some of this stuff to me up basic putty. This is a great putty. It's a great surface putty. This is not for gap filling. Don't ever use this to fill gaps. It's not what it's for. Use straight, I mean, that stuff is, to me, a basic putty is essentially liquid green stuff. It's not meant for filling gaps. It's meant for very minor surface imperfections. You need to get a much more substantial putty, like some green stuff. The way I figured that out is I actually started picking at that seam with a sculpting tool Friday night when I was trying to get the paint stripped off, and it started all coming out. So I just pulled everything out, completely opened up that seam, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to try throwing this in the freezer and see if I can get it apart. That way I can just completely redo the thing. As you can see on here, there's still a fair bit of paint. This red stuff is difficult to get off, and it's all over here. This, I think, is actually a spot of super glue that got paint on it, which is a bitch to get off. But sanding and scraping with a good old straight edge razor blade is doing the trick pretty well. I forget where I was going with that point, but yeah, so there's still some paint that needs to come off, surfaces to be sanded, some sort of panel lines and stuff to be carved back out. Fairly simple tasks, but putting this thing back together, building it right, is going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think I'm up for it now that I have a kit that I can legit do that with. I'm just noticing how uneven some of this stuff is. There's going to be a lot of time spent with a hairdryer warming up pieces and taking the warpage out of them, but it's gonna, again, I'm gonna get to build this my way. So I was actually talking with Dave earlier today about lighting kits and how to light it, because he lit a Night Titan that he painted up for the Space Wolves a number of years ago, and he actually just put a video on his Instagram page. He's at 41st Millennium, where you can go check that out. He's also an electrician, so I figured he's a pretty good resource to ask about stuff like that. So what I actually want to do, since I'm going to be able to open the doors now, I'm probably just going to magnetize the doors, cut off the hinges, and just put in magnets, and then put in a magnet up in here to keep them closed. I'll just kind of point out quickly, if you've never seen the interior of a Caestus assault ram, you can see this is the top, and then these are sort of the what do they call them, the misericordia or something like that, that actually holds them in place. But you can see, get this up close enough for you guys, these are little lights. Now, I think that would be very perfectly, very easily replaceable with a nano or pico LED. I'd probably only run 2. I could probably get away with 1. Honestly, those things are very bright. So that would be cool. Running the wires, I think seeing wires running across the top of here would add to the appearance. I don't think it would detract at all. But then you have to worry about running wiring from both booms or nacelles, if you prefer, and then you actually have to find a way to power them. Well, right back here, there's a very big void. There's supposed to be a bulkhead that goes here that was missing when the model was originally built, that has sort of one of those sliding doors or overhead door kind of things like you'd see on a Rhino, or not necessarily a Rhino, but on like a Land Raider. So what I'm probably going to do is actually scratch build a new bulkhead here, just to sort of take away from, so you don't see into this cavity, because I think what I'm going to do is actually put the battery pack in this cavity. Dave suggested running a 6-volt power pack. I'm contemplating just 3 and then wiring a switch in somewhere, but that's yet to be decided. You know, he knows better, so I should probably just go with the 6-volt. But my thinking is, and this is actually going to be a lot of work, is to actually take this vent grate, and I'd have to drastically thin this out, because you can see it does not go through the other side. So I'd have to really thin that out and be able to cut it out to the point where I could take this out, probably put some shims in and magnetize that, and I'd only have to do it on one nacelle or one boom, and then put the power pack in here. Now, the way that this goes together, you can see here I've got my nacelle. This is the bottom half, and also the side that attaches to the body of the Caestus. I take these, put them in together. Now what I could do is actually drill a hole through here, because I'm probably going to pin this in back here into the main section of the fuselage. So I could actually drill through the other nacelle, just put a hole straight through here, run wiring through here for the other one, and then attach the wires there, and probably rig up a switch somewhere. Could probably put a switch somewhere here. It doesn't require a very big hole, but I could definitely make a little switch to put there. I think it'd be pretty cool. A switch probably kind of necessary. The big question there is whether or not this can actually be taken, if we can thin that out enough to take it out without damaging anything. So that's kind of the rough plan for that right now, and we'll kind of see where that goes. I think it's a cool idea. I've seen somebody else that did it using like electroconductive paint. It's like, that sounds like a lot of work, you know, so I don't think I'll be doing that. And like I said, I could probably get away with just running 1 LED, but I think 2 would be cooler. And you can run up to about 10 LEDs off of a 3-volt setup. But again, probably going to end up going with the 6-volt per Dave's recommendation. But I do have a fair amount of space back here because, again, you know, it's the same size here. Like I said before, there's going to be a lot of fit issues with this, but we're going to do our best to try and overcome them. Because if we look, you can see there's a pretty big gap where light's coming in. Because when I look back there, yeah, this whole seam right here, and then you can see here where a piece was actually broke off. I did have some minor parts breakages in the process of trying to take this apart, but it was nothing that was terribly drastic. There was one that's going to be a little bit more noticeable, but at the same time, it's really not going to be too difficult. You can see I took this whole chunk off here. I do have the piece, so I can glue it back in. What I might end up doing is actually just cleaning this up so it's a nice clean break, and then just fairing it back in with either some putty, some green stuff, or possibly with some stock plastic. You can kind of see anything behind this little tab here won't be shown because the engine plate fits on this little shelf here. And again, it's a simple fix, so it's really nothing to get too upset about. But right now it's mainly just cleaning up the paint that's left and getting rid of all the putty. If I can get in close, you can see that's all kind of cracked and everything. God, I hate it when people do this to try and make stuff focus. But you can kind of see it's rough and it's kind of cracked, and I bet if we, and there's also a lot of putty left over, but we can shave some of this off, because obviously if this stuff isn't cleaned up, when it comes time to actually build and paint the model, that kind of stuff is really going to show through. So that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. And what it seems like, I mean, I'm finding fingerprints on this thing where someone got a glob of super glue all over something and then stuck their finger in it. So that's what I've been working on for this week, and probably honestly going to spend a lot more time on in the coming week. But Gilman is slightly closer. I've started working on his bolter, doing a little more of the detail work on his backpack, and basically need to figure out what I'm going to do with his power sword, his giant sword, and then start working on the base again. So pretty much exact spot where I was last week with him. But again, the Caestus is almost entirely stripped, and now it's just a matter of getting these minor details cleaned up, cleaning up a lot of the super glue so we can get this thing back together. So I'll probably have another report for you guys next week. We'll try and keep this Sunday night format going. Tomorrow afternoon about 1:30 here Central Standard Time, both Dave, myself, and Jamie from the Route are going to be recording all about the upcoming bout with the Route. So look for that new episode of the Spaceman with Guns podcast to be posted late tomorrow night in U.S. time, or sometime on Tuesday. So, guys, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.